Welcome to today's episode of Mental Wellness Insights, bringing sunlight into mental health. In last week's episode, we had Beatrice Elizabeth Akumu narrate to us her trauma. And today we have experts, psychologists and a pastor to discuss some of the issues arising from Elizabeth's story.
My name is Beatrice Elizabeth Akumu. I was born in 1989. Yeah, and at the time my mom had not gotten married. She was still a young girl.
Yeah.
Actually, she was a school girl. So I could not be raised properly by her. So I had to grow up in the hands of my grandmother.
How long did you stay with your mother in childhood?
I don't really remember if it was 1 week or 2 weeks, but when I was still a toddler, my grandmother took care of me.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you grew up with your grandmother?
Exactly.
Okay. So how was the experience growing up in the hands of your grandmother?
Yes. That was quite interesting. It was so fun.
Yeah.
Because I was like her last born, let me say that. I was really pampered. Yeah, and there was much love around me. Yes, my grandfather was still alive, so the love was there. I could feel it. Although life in the village, you can't compare it with life in town, because the language I knew was just mother tongue. So when your cousins come home, you don't understand Kiswahili or English, so you are like mshamba, let me say that.
Yeah, you
but
find
the
there's
love
a
was
difference.
really there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the love that was there, that you felt, was the grandparents' love.
Yes.
How did you relate to your mother at that point?
It didn't occur to me that she was my mother actually.
Yeah.
But she could visit us. And I used to call her auntie. So I knew that was my aunt. But now she was quite tough. So whenever she came home to visit, I was not really free with her, because she could come and whenever she found something like a mistake done, she could beat me properly. So I didn't really like that.
So she used to beat you when you did a mistake?
Yes. Yeah, maybe I've not washed the dishes or something, then she could observe that, or maybe I'm slow in doing things. She could properly beat me.
Why do you think she was so harsh?
So I used to wonder, which auntie is this that whenever she comes, she could beat me, and other aunties were not beating me when they came. Yeah, so I didn't like that bit about her.
So you didn't like when she came?
I didn't like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I didn't like. Yeah.
So at what point did you get to know that she's actually your mother?
That was in 2002, around 2002.
What point in school were you?
2002, I was in standard D6.
That's when you knew that your mother was your mother.
Yes.
How did you get to know that?
I was going for the confirmation in church. Yeah, and so we were being taught, the morals and about the parents. So that's when I knew, when I heard my grandmother saying that her mother will not be coming, but we are here. So I was like, my mother. I could, of course, I used to hear something like Mama Betty, like Dorcas. My grandfather could send me to her, take this to your mother, but it didn't occur to me that she was really my mother because of the beatings. But now I accepted that she was my mother when I was in standard 6.
So, welcome, Josephine and Reverend Kimani. We will start by you introducing yourselves.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for this invitation. My name is Josephine Mwaghogho, and I'm practicing counseling psychologist. And I'm actually happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Stephen Kimani, Reverend, and I'm a youth pastor. I minister at PCA Kajiado, Kajiado Parish as a youth coordinator. And I thank God for being part of this discussion. Thank you.
Right, we will go straight to the point. Both of you have watched Beatrice's story. And I think the first thing that we will start with is Beatrice was born out of wedlock. Her mother was still in school. So I would like us to dwell on issues that arise from being born by a single mother out of wedlock. I will begin with Reverend Kimani. Yes.
Now, as human beings, we find our identity from where we were born. No one chooses when, how, or to be born by who. It's God's choice, and at times it is prepared, at times it is not. And the situations we find ourselves in, we cannot control them, because wherever I found myself in, that is where I was born. So when I look at this case of Betty, number one, I appreciate that, number one, she was born. And being born, she was born, the mother never aborted. So, and despite that, bearing the fact that she was a student by the time she was getting this pregnancy, she could have aborted. So the first thing that we can appreciate is that she was born. It comes with a myriad of challenges, which I truly believe that we will be discussing. But it is not easy. Even when you listen to the stories, from her stories we can be able to deduce quite a number of things, which I believe that we will be discussing. But I know it is not easy, but there is nothing you can do. Whether you're born out of wedlock, or whether you're born in a very planned marriage, where you find yourself in, you now move on, and you just need to understand what your situation is for you to cope. Yes.
Yeah, so we normally say we have expectations in society. Like, for instance, when should a person really be getting married and probably have children? There's always that cycle. So when you have a scenario like this one, maybe what we did not have an opportunity to hear from Beatrice is how prepared was the mom. Did she want this baby? How was her pregnancy? Because that journey also tells a lot about the upbringing, and either it could have had any effect on Beatrice. Because we normally say communication starts from during conception. At the time the child is still unborn in the baby, there is a way we normally psychologically this child is able to tell whether I'm loved, I'm wanted in this particular world, you see. So even as we think about could there have been issues of rejection or right from birth, that also, it depends also with how the process was, her pregnancy was for the mom before this child was born. But of course, when a child is born, we expect both parents to be there. That's the father and the mother. And in a case for Beatrice, we only had the mom. So and so having the father figure missing in her life would also have an impact during her childhood development, because you see, every parent will play a role in the life of this child. So there's always that parental love that we'll expect from a father and a mother. And especially when it comes to a girl, there's always a bond that these young girls actually have with their parents. And when that goes missing, then later you could actually see a bit of emotional instability and a bit of behavioral challenges when that child is growing up. So yes, it could have an impact when you have a child being born out of wedlock. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Beatrice was born when the mother was in Form 4. And according to her, she was born, and after 1 week, the mother left her with the grandmother and went back to school. I think it is just that short span of a time that Beatrice ever had with the mother. Yeah. So, what are the issues that...
Now you see, when a child is growing up, first and foremost with the parents, you always learn to trust your environment. There's love that you expect from your parents. And that love brings out trust in the environment that you are in. Because when a child is growing up, a child will cry for either food, and of course they expect to breastfeed from the mother. A child will cry out, for instance, if they are wet and they expect to be attended to. But now in Beatrice's case, you can imagine at 1 month or 1 week old, did she even have time to be breastfed? We don't know.
She did
So that
not.
means even the bond was kind of missing between her and the mom. So, but from what I heard, there was a lot of love from the grandparents. That at least they stepped in very handy to support her in that area. But again, you'll find that she will yearn for that parental love, which she missed out during her time for the early stages in life. And attachment issues, again, would also come up later on in life. And I think we were able to see that through her story. Yes.
Yeah. I want us to imagine what a normal family would be when we come to the preparation, psychologically preparing to nurture a child. As Josephine has said, a child needs to be born in an environment where there is a mother, there is a father, and both of them are also prepared to receive a child. Now, in this case, there's a very interesting scenario here. We have a student here who gets pregnant when she's about to sit for her final exam. So there's a lot of effect, even psychologically, means she's not prepared to sire a child. Number two, she does not have the capability to bring this child up. This pregnancy is also interfering with her future, because she expects, it is expected that every mother should nurture her own child. And not even financially, even psychologically. You can imagine even a woman who is well prepared, married, and has a lot of support. Majority of them still have postpartum depression, and they need a lot of support to be able to cope. Now you can imagine this is a child getting another child in an environment where everybody is pointing fingers, and most likely the person who impregnated this girl will not own up because of the consequences. He will not own up to the pregnancy, so she's abandoned, betrayed, and not prepared, both financially, physically, emotionally. And this pregnancy is also a burden and a hindrance to the future of this mother. Yes.
So what issues would arise from there?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is she touched about rejection. But before that, you look at depression. And maybe Josephine can talk about that. She's more of a psychologist than myself. But you can imagine that the mother's health affects the unborn child. There is a lot of connection. And so you can imagine this baby, this fetus, is already depressed while still in the mother's womb. And so even before uzaliwe uanze hii mashida ya hii dunia, you're already having a problem where you're supposed to having all the comfort that you need to have. Because being a student, we expect that the mother is not feeding well. You cannot be given any special diet. So definitely feeding is a problem. Dressing is also a problem, because a pregnant mother requires some particular type of clothes.
Yeah.
And so I think this child is already affected psychologically before you're even introduced to now the real problem. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means even at birth, Beatrice is already having issues, although she may not know.
It's not even during that, but even during the process of exactly,
pregnancy.
right,
Yeah.
of conception. You know,
Yeah.
we normally say that there's a bond between the child and the mother. So anytime the mother, as the pastor is saying, the mother is happy. You know, the same communication is also sent to the child.
Yes.
The child already knows what is happening. My mom is happy. So at the point when the mom is not ready for her, there are a bit of rejection, and we don't know what she went through the 9 months. We don't know whether it was an easy pregnancy. Was she lamenting, complaining? Did she even make an attempt to get her? We don't know that part of the story. But all this is coming down to Beatrice even right before she's unborn. So that feeling of rejection, and I think you had it towards her life story, that's what she was feeling all along, that actually could have started before then. Okay? And here now she's born and she's abandoned. She wakes up one morning, there's no mother, there's no father. Although there's a very good support system around her. So that's what she starts with, unfortunate, right from the word go. And you can imagine a world like this whereby you expect to be received a lot of love. That is missing. So of course the will and the hope that what is really out there for me, that is already challenged from the word go. Yeah, for this particular child who is born out of wedlock.
Yeah.
Yes.
And definitely a mother before giving birth, there are those prior preparation, and a woman who is well married or prepared to get a child will prepare even psychologically for the things that will come. Her looks, the changes in body shape and all that. Now, think of this as a student who expects a lot of stigma from fellow students. You know, when you're a student now, umeitwa mama fulani, you know, it's not a very nice word.
No.
Then you can imagine the society. She was just in Form 4. Why couldn't she have waited? And maybe the man who even impregnated her, na yeye ndio huyo. Asema, you find your...
I have nothing to do with
I have
it.
nothing to do with it. I know majority of them what they do. Majority of men, that is what they do. Especially when to them maybe sex was a game or it was the hide and seek. And you'll find somebody asking, didn't you know that you could get pregnant? Didn't you know that you're a student? And you can also imagine where the mother is coming from. So definitely she is under the care of the parents.
Yeah.
So definitely chances of being rejected are so high. So all these things will culminate in a very unwelcoming situation for this child who is being born. And the other thing is, you know, a first-time mother is called a prima gravida. Yeah, I've seen that kind of a thing. Prima gravida. So, you are a first-time mother. Probably she did not even know that she's pregnant until much later.
Yeah.
Because there are so many young girls who even say that, she's even asked, are you pregnant? No. So just as she's saying we do not know the condition really, maybe she could have even realized much later. And we don't know how long she stayed with the pregnancy before it comes out. The time ambao unaanza kwamba, wewe, are you pregnant? Are you sure you are not pregnant? And because you know what you did, then there is that kalai and all that. When you are alone, you also think, how do I break this news both to this man? So all those things are a combination of things that will affect this child who will be born, and their relationship now will also matter.
All right, Beatrice now is already born.
Yes.
And she finds herself being taken care of by the grandparents. Now, are there issues that a child may affect a child positively or negatively by being brought up by grandparents? And then also, as we do that, think about a child is born being brought up by grandparents, but she knows that the mother is alive somewhere. Yeah.
Yes, there could be. In fact, at some point when I was watching her video, I remember her saying she didn't know it was her mother.
Yes.
Until much later on in life.
Yeah.
And she'd call her auntie. And she realized this auntie would come home and thoroughly beat her. So it's already that those are questions of identity. Really, who am I? Where do I belong really at the end of it all? I'm sure that those questions that she had at the end of the day. But remember, when you're being brought up by grandparents, it necessarily will not be the same as parents. These are people who are much older. So when it comes to even in cognitive support, again, that can be how supported was she in terms of even her education, her growing up and so on. As much as they would love her, they will not be able to do so much like what a young parent would do for her. So of course that will have a bit of an impact in her life, either in her cognitive development, in terms of her behavior, okay, emotional stability, how she was able to grow up. Physically, of course, she will grow because I believe her grandparents tried their best.
Yeah.
Of course, with the support of the mother to make sure at least she had what she required in life. But it cannot really be 100% the way a parent will, a mother and a father will do it for their own child. And yes, it can either be positive or negative. And again, you saw her saying she would prefer the grandparents because they would love her, they will not beat her. There's a bit of also that, a bit of pampering, which again can create a challenge because there has to be a balance. You have to create boundaries with this child when they're growing up and discipline and all these things. So yes, a lot could happen when this particular child is brought in an environment like that particular one that she had with the grandparents. Yes.
Yeah. I'm thinking of this situation where, like in the Anglican liturgy, it says that marriage provides a conducive environment where children are to be born and also raised. Now this child has entered into a world. First thing, she expects a lot of love. She's just been born, 2 weeks with her mother, and then she's separated. So during that cognitive stage, the first thing she's starting to know or to familiarize with is the grandmother instead of the mother. As she has said, that difference is there. Now this child is looked upon as a burden because they're not prepared to receive a child. They did not plan. And so the grandmother has to be brought back now into being, the Maasais call it a Ndomononi. Ndomononi is that woman who was just given birth. And so definitely I'm expecting, and from the stories you can hear, they are not well off in the family. And there are other members of the family. And so this child is looked upon as a burden. So she's not a very welcome guest. But due to the human nature, they cannot throw this child away. This child is ours, so she has to be brought up in the same family, whether wanted or not. So she cannot really receive that kind of the love that is required. That will definitely affect her relationship with people. And I think you've seen kids who are left sometime on the bed because people have to go and fend, and you will find a child suckling the finger. Sometimes they will suckle, and you're just alone in the house. Sometimes she talked about a child wanting to be the diapers to be changed, to be fed. Now if you're not feeding this child, it means that you have to wean that child earlier than expected, because there's no milk, the mother is gone, and maybe even affording that cow milk is not that easy. And so you can imagine how this child begins problem at a very early stage, which really affects how she relates to the society. And one of the most dangerous things I've seen with human being is making problems a norm of life. You know, such that you do not even realize if you bring up a child kwa nyumba ya matope na iwe normal na hata akuwe hivyo, probably amekuja kuona nyumba ya simiti baadaye kabisa ama roof ya tiles na vitu kama hizo, na amelelewa nyumba ya nyasi and all that. Sometimes it is hard for them to imagine in their mind that kuna watu wanaingianga nyumba iko na tiles. Kuna watu wanaishi kwa nyumba ya terazo. It's like it was not built, ni kama ilimea. And so this child ameanzana na shida kutoka mapema. So she begins appreciating shida kama this is the norm of life. Hapo ndio taabu iko. Yes.
Yeah.
I think in addition to what Reverend Kim has said, it also brings a bit of confusion and uncertainty in the life of this child. Remember, I'm being brought up in a home. I have these elderly parents. I see a lady coming who comes to beat me when I really need to. So this child is asking myself, where do I belong at the end of the day? And of course, in the midst of this confusion and uncertainty, it can also bring a bit of identity issues later on. And I think at some point I heard her talk about when her younger siblings will come from Nairobi, she'll feel less confident. She'll not be confident enough. Why? Because this was a talking Swahili and English. Me, I only know mother tongue. Me, I only know what I was taught in my soul. Already those are what? Identity issues. Confidence becomes a challenge for her. And of course, all this answered, where do I really belong? Nobody is giving her answers. Nobody is clarifying, like, truly this is your mom. Or really what happened that you ended up being here. And where is your father? So that's how, unfortunately, this child grew with a lot of uncertainties and confusions in life. And later on, I think you could see it in her life. Even as Pastor was saying, to form lasting, healthy relationships, that really becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a section we really missed, which I think we should have had. Now, you can imagine she goes to Nairobi, so by the time she's calling her auntie, because she's introducing her to the mother, when she's calling her auntie, and she's coming occasionally, and then she's being beaten, know that. You know, another point we should have known, which would have also given a lot of light, is that she has just finished Form 4. What was the relationship between her and the mother during that window before the mother goes to fend in another place, such that when she comes, she calls him auntie? You know, that relationship would really have told us what the mother was feeling and thinking about this child. Their relationship when she's still young, just finished Form 4. Did she stay with the mother during that time before she goes to Nairobi? That relationship would have told us a lot.
Yeah, she actually, in another clip, she says, before the mother left home where she was married to go to Nairobi, she would only visit the mother occasionally when the grandmother sends her to maybe take some food. But she would only be there to take and come back. So there is no point when she was still growing up before class 7 that she actually lived with the mother. And the relationship was just that of one day and coming back. It's only, she says, when she was going to be baptized, that is when now she knew this is her mother, because she had the grandmother tell somebody that her mother will not be here, something like that. So there was really no relationship per se. Yeah. Now, how does one feel, a child feel, when I know that my mother is married, having 2 other children, and living on their own, and me, I'm living with grandparents? What are the issues that can affect a child in that? She knows her mother is somewhere, is married to another man, who is not her father. I believe she knows that. But she still is not living with the family.
Yeah. I would say even before you go there, I would say that you know, there is that difference. A child sometimes is able to look at other parents, other children with their parents, and they can slightly be able to guess the age that something is odd. And you look at a child at the grandmother, and this child knows that this is my mother.
Yeah.
And she's looking at, hey, my mother is a little bit older than the rest of my colleagues. That is one of the things that would cause her to be socially affected. People are coming, parents are coming for meetings, and maybe probably other people are saying that your grandmother is here. Yeah. And for her, she knows it is a mother. And definitely when she says this is my mother, not my grandmother, then there must be questions. And definitely, and you know, kids are very straightforward. Hey, your mother is very old. I think that would really affect a child when growing.
That is very true. That those feelings will be there. And in addition now, that's when rejection really comes in, those questions around rejection. Why am I different from my other step-siblings? Why have I been abandoned? Questions will arise like, was it my fault? You know, then what is my contribution? What, this life does not make meaning anymore. Why am I here in the first place? So I believe she must have had gone through that. Those feelings must have been there. At the same time, you're also wondering, then where should I belong? Am I rightfully here with my grandparents, or should I then be together with my mother where she stays? So again, as I said, uncertainty still keeps on firming up as this child grows. Because remember also, at the point at which she discovered about her mom also matters. Somebody at the confirmation stage, that's about 12, 13, that's a preteen to a teen. So we normally say that kind of a child, even their reasoning is slightly developed. It's not like a small child where we talk about concrete reasoning. They're not really able to relate things. But this is somebody is a preteen, so they're able to relate one with another. So I'm sure there are those questions of really what happened. Why am I different? Is it a fault of my own that probably Beatrice was contemplating or going through? But also again trying to feel then, how do I feel that I can belong to this particular family? New rules, especially now, I think at some point now when she was able to join them on board. You know, now you're having a new home, new things will be done different. How do I relate? Do I call this man my father when I really know there's another father? I'm not sure where he is. Will I be doing something wrong? There must be a mixture of feelings that this particular child was going through at the point of that transition. Yes. Okay. That of course, as I said, all these you see them later on in life. The relationships that she was able to form, the decisions that she was able to make, you see that later on in her life. Yes.
So in other words, what we are saying is, all the things that we go through from conception to adulthood, they come back in our lives and affect our future life.
Yeah, definitely, because the first 12 years are very important in how you nurture somebody's character and how you form that person whose upbringing is going to affect how he will grow up later. And this first 12 years are so crucial in a child's life. How they relate, because they will be brought up to around, nowadays is about 5 years. At that point, they only know that it's my mother, it's what my mother is saying, it's what my daddy is saying. Then after that, they'll be taken to school. Now they'll start questioning some of the things mommy and daddy are saying. Teacher said this, teacher said this. Because I've even seen children who argue with their parents. I do remember a very funny case that was brought on TV. I don't remember which TV. And the child is a Luo, and then their teacher, I think, is from Mount Kenya. So, when it comes to things like 30, you see, in their home, because of our mother tongue interference, our diction is different. So the teacher will say, that. But when they are studying at home, the parents will say 30. So the child is, no, teacher said that. And this really affects how children grow. Now the camp is expanding. Now it's from home, and then at some point now when they are trying also to find their own identity, that's when they are now starting to ask, why is my home this way? Why am I treated this way? Why am I the way I am and looking different than others? Now, you can imagine, you're growing up, then you're not even connecting. Why am I calling my mother mom, and I'm calling my mother and my sister and her sisters auntie, yet your mother, your auntie is not a sister to your mother? How can you see? And I don't know whether you're getting it. This child is calling the grandmother mother. She's calling grandmother's children aunties. Okay? But she is not able to connect. How is it that they are not my mother's sisters? But I'm calling them auntie, including this one who keeps beating me up. So why is my home so different? Yeah, because others will definitely will introduce their people, and definitely, especially in villages, people know each other. This family knows this one, so you know how families are, and this creates such a huge effect, and it really affects the growing and how this child will interpret the truths. The psychologists will tell us about the worldview. How we interpret our truths. And sometimes those truths are so relative that it is not standard. The way this child is interpreting her own truth is totally different from how others are interpreting it. And the way the Betty grew up knowing that for me, I have several aunties. Some are good, one is very terrible. But I also have a grandfather who's like my protection.
Yeah.
He loves me. And so if you look at it clearly, you'll see that she was so attached and she felt safe with the grandfather.
Yeah.
Who's also adding the confusion. Take this to your mother.
Yeah. Now, before we leave the childhood, this issue of the mother, when she comes, she's so harsh. Could it be something psychological?
Now, for the mother, we really don't know how her family was running, because it could be many things. Number one, she could be looking at this child, and there are those memories how she was conceived, what she went through, and how she was born. Okay, so if they are not pleasant memories, it's not probably a very good thing for her. And also looking at where she's coming from, her family, again also depends how stable she is. Because I tend to believe if it was very stable and very welcoming, I'm sure she would have joined them much earlier.
Yeah.
So already that tells you there could have been issues. Like, now can we accommodate this other child that I have out of wedlock? That is if we are told maybe the husband knows. So we don't know that bit of the side. But for her as a person, yes, there could be. Because remember when she had that child, as I said earlier, we really don't know what she went through. Well, those issues are addressed, but she had to go back to school and finish. So she could have dealt with so many feelings and probably addressing all those anxieties with many, many denials, what we call defense mechanisms. And you know, if you don't deal with them later in life, they do affect you. So we really don't know whether she would come back and project all her feelings to this particular child. We are not very sure about it, but yes, it does. It can actually have an impact on even how she relates to this girl, and how even later on the relationship was later on in the future. What she was going through as a mother.
Thank you
both
so
from
much.
her family and also what she went through prior before this child was born.
Yeah.
Here you'll allow me to do a very speculative hypothesis.
Yeah.
Because the relationship between her and this child. There are some things we can be able to tell why she's treating this child. Although Betty herself says that she was just a disciplinarian.
Yeah.
But I guess it's because at that time she could not understand, and even now, she could not have understood why the mother was behaving the way they're behaving.
Yeah.
There are parents who really beat their children. But if you go deep, you realize that it is because they are bitter. Either the husband left you, so you have to really struggle to raise these children up. And so every time when you look at how you're struggling, and maybe you even know where that man is, you feel so, you're so pained knowing that that guy is doing well out there when I'm suffering here. And then these kids are also becoming a trouble to me. And so you vent your anger. And you divert your anger to the children. Now, in this case, you realize that this Betty has a lot of effect to the mother. A lot of effect. Number one, she has been called a mother at the time when she does not want.
Yeah.
Number two, she's been abandoned by probably the man who impregnated her. Three, as she's saying, we cannot be sure about this, she's being castigated by everybody. So when she looks at this child, looks at a burden, looks at somebody who took away my dream, I could have been in a better position or a better place if I did not have you. So you came in to destroy my life. And so there are every chances that this kind of people become bitter without they themselves realizing that they are bitter. And so they tend to vent their anger or divert that anger into other areas. And probably that could have been the reason why she would beat children. Not only Betty, but even other children. Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, in addition to what Pastor is saying, it's something called unfinished business. If you did not finish it, trust me, you'll finish it with somebody else. And probably this is what you could see with Betty, because she had not dealt with it close. She did not close that part of her life. Yeah. So unconsciously, she finds herself reacting and doing things, not knowing that is a trigger behind all what is happening around her. Yes.
Thank you very much. That is a very good conclusion to the first part of Betty's life. Thank you very much for watching this session of Mental Wellness Insights. A lot of issues have arisen in the journey of Betty. You have heard the analysis so far. We are going to, in the subsequent episodes, we are still going to analyze Betty's life. But it is our hope that this will help many other people who are going through issues like Betty's, and a lot of them are not able to speak. So we also laud Betty for being able to speak so that other people, other lives are helped and are saved. Thank you very much. We hope that you have subscribed to this channel. If you haven't, please do. Click on the notification bell. And most of all, we will really like to hear your comments. So do write your comments in the comments section. Blessings.